I want to talk too about the behind the badge that you started as sort of the series within the series, because that felt so cathartic in a way that I didn't realize needed to be told from a policeman's point of view of what happened after the George Floyd killing. That particular episode was so raw. And talk about, what made you want to get involved in the whole police reform conversation with this?
I think it's inevitable if you're spending your time with cops who like Dan and Dave and all of the guests who we've had on the podcast. These men and women, they consider what they're doing a calling, and they care deeply about their victims, and they have zero interest in cutting corners or doing anything that would weaken the case in court, right? If we're going to go to trial with this suspect. Um, and so you couldn't not have that conversation. And Dan and Dave, but we're not a political podcast, but they did want people to know because, of course, the tide has turned um, for law enforcement in the last year. It's a very difficult time to be in law enforcement. They've brought this scrutiny on themselves, as Dan and Dave would readily admit. At the same time, it feels unfair no matter what your profession or what group you consider yourself to identify with, to be painted with one broad brush, to say that everyone who has blonde hair is stupid. It would be outrageous. It would be folly. So to assume that all law enforcement is broken and or racist, I think is unfair because I think obviously you have, by and large, I believe, individuals who really, really, really believe in this job and got into it for the right reason.
Mm.
They also, however, wanted people to know that what Derek Chauvin did, putting his knee on um, George Floyd's neck for 8 minutes, is not anything that they were ever taught. They consider it murder. This is not okay. This is not how you do the job. And so we kind of backed into the conversation. At the same time, the fans, we have an extraordinary fan base. They are the best fans in the Podoverse, and they are incredibly vocal. We hear from them a lot. And they really wanted to know what Dan and Dave thought of the current events and police reform.
Mm.
And Dan and Dave, if you listen to that series, will be the first to tell you, absolutely take some money that has been allocated to police departments and put it toward the services that are more specialized in that area, like mental health. They always say our job is to secure the scene, to make sure everybody's safe. It is not to somehow help you out of your mental health crisis. We'll do what we can, but that's not our area of expertise. So please do bring in somebody who knows how to manage that much better than we do. Otherwise, everybody ends up disappointed.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it was Dan told the story about when he was called for a disturbance and it was someone's 8-year-old kid just going nuts. And he
Yes.
was like, really, did I have to be called? And then they were upset when he put his hand on the kid to stop him.
Yes, that was Dave
Yeah.
actually. And yes, it is. And I think it illustrates something that in the mix of this very important conversation that we're currently having around the country about law enforcement reform is that the people call the police for everything. We have a Patreon account where you can pay $5 a month, and that content is, you can get the episodes ad free, but we actually curate special content for that. We drop it every week, and oftentimes it's quite funny, which is great because it's a little antidote to the very serious things that we address on the podcast. But I think one of the pieces we did really illustrated how people call the police for everything, from my cable is out to my sprinklers are broken to my kid is losing his mind. And it's not a question of, they're brandishing a knife and I'm afraid for my life, to actually I have a burglar, right? So it really, really runs the gamut. And I think it illustrates how much we rely on that profession to make sure that the world stays in order.